think this has been obviously one of the teams that I think I've been actually very interested to talk about because I think they've had a very interesting offseason. I think they've done a lot of things that I've liked. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Back Pocket Podcast. Back after a long break. We are finally back from college, and that means we are going to be posting a lot more videos. And this is what we're going to be starting with Buster Boom. We are starting with the New England Patriots. I'm so excited to be back. And today I have my co-host along with me, Dylan Shalom. Dylan, how are you doing today?
I'm really excited to get back and doing this. So I'm excited to talk ball. Let's do this.
If you're talking about the New England Patriots, I think the first thing you got to talk about is Drake Maye because obviously they've chosen him to be the hopeful face of the franchise. So starting off with him, Dylan, what do you think of that pick initially?
I think he should have been the second overall pick, and I think Washington made a huge mistake. Drake Maye is the QB1 in most draft classes, if you're looking at it in general. I just think that New England have hit with a really good pick here. It's a jackpot pick, but they just don't have a lot to surround him with. So you're looking at a team who, midway through the draft process, I was thinking that they might want to look elsewhere other than quarterback, even though, again, you could get a Maye or a Daniels, which they ended up getting Maye. But I just think that they're setting him up for failure with having nothing around him to support him with. The wide receiver class that they could have picked up on in the second round, they decided not to trade up back into the first round, not to bring in one of the better receivers in round two. And you're sticking Drake Maye with the receiver core of Kendrick Bourne and Hulk. And it's just the same core that you had last year. So while I do like Drake Maye a lot as a prospect, I think he's something to look forward to for New England fans. I just don't think that he's going to be able to succeed year one.
Yeah, I think that is a common theme with most rookies. I think guys like CJ Stroud really are the exception. I wouldn't expect them to have that kind of year. That being said, I think this receiving core is a lot better than they had last year, which isn't saying much, but I think it at least bodes better for him than a guy like Mac Jones there. Bailey Zappa was there last year, obviously were terrible. Also, I think Bill Belichick, even though he likely is, in my opinion, the greatest coach of all time, probably wore out his welcome at that point. They probably need to get some fresh faces in there, and I think they did a good job of that. I saw someone explain this a little while ago, and I feel like it accurately describes the Patriots receiving group. It's basically a jumble of like five mixes between border like low end receiver two or high end receiver three. That's what I would say is this
I
receiving
don't
group
even.
because you have
I,
I think Jalen Polk. I like Jalen Polk. I like
yeah,
Javon
yeah.
Baker. I like those picks. They probably would be on most teams again
Wide
a low
receiver
end
threes,
two, a receiver,
wide
a high end
receiver
receiver
threes.
three. Then you have guys like they got in KJ Osborne who
Yeah, wide
is
receiver three.
okay. He's okay. Wide receiver three. Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver three. I mean, I'd say maybe Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas. He had a pretty good year actually.
Wide
So
receiver three.
wide receiver
None
three.
of these guys I would be happy to have as a wide receiver two on my team. None of them.
But I think Polk and Baker are two guys that you
They
could
have potential. Yeah,
have
they have
potential
potential.
to be. I mean, they have potential to be receiver one, but obviously, you would say maybe I we could count them to be receiver two if you don't really have that second guy. But I think really what this receiver group tells me is that there I don't think there's a guy that realistically in crunch time you're going to go to and be like, yes, you are definitely getting the ball in this situation. At least right now, given that we don't know what Javon Baker is going to be, we don't know what Jalen Polk is going to be. They don't have a guy where it's third down, you're going to be like, the ball is absolutely going to this guy. And that's obviously tough for them, but maybe it could also be a good thing. I mean, the ball, I think May's going to have a lot of different weapons that he's going to get it to. I don't think the opposition could really key in on one guy. Um, Obviously, you're really counting on a few guys to step up. I think at least one of these rookies is going to have to step up, and this is a really good receiver class, so I think it is very possible. Um, but yeah, I think that's what I would say. It's better than last year. It's not. I don't think it's a terrible receiving group,
I do.
but it's
I mean,
not. I don't think so. I mean,
let's
you have a couple guys there with potential. I
yes.
mean, people would have said that. I think you've got a couple guys there with potential. And you've got a bunch of guys that I'd say at worst are receiver threes. I think that there are worse situations a rookie quarterback can go into. It's not like a Bryce Young situation, I would say.
But last year we looked at Terrace Marshall and we said this is a guy who has
Terrace
promise.
Marshall.
We
Because
looked at
then because
Jonathan
then we could
Mingo, a
say
guy that
because
comes
then
in and had promise, but they
I
didn't
would
do anything. It's I think
Jonathan Mingus.
it's
Jonathan
similar. I actually think going into last season, I would have been more high on the Panthers receiving group because Adam Thielen was such a comfortable target for Bryce Young. I just don't think there's anything that resembles a starting caliber wide receiver other than maybe KJ Osborne on this team. And again,
but
Polk and Baker,
no, but
it's meant to be seen.
I see your point there. What I would counter that with is that the difference between last year's wide receiver class and this year's receiver class is night and day. Jonathan Mingo last year would probably be well, a fourth round pick. I would say he'd probably be in the same range as a guy like Javon Baker, who is right now. And then and then I think Polk is someone who I was fine on Polk. I wasn't like high or low on him particularly. I don't really see him
Let's be
as a
real
guy
though.
that strikes me with wide receiver
He was
one
arguably the
upside.
wide receiver three in his college. It's just like I don't
Yeah,
even
but Washington was easily the best receiving core in the entire. I
the
mean,
best receiving core in college
Jalen
football.
Waddle was receiver four at Alabama. That doesn't really
There were
change.
years where he was the two and the one though. It was at
You,
yeah in the 2021 season. I want to say
well, last year I would say he was receiver two, definitely. Obviously, McMillan was hurt, but I would say
yeah
he was
yeah.
receiver two. And I think, and here's what I'll say about Polk. I think he's someone that strikes me as a guy that will be a receiver too in the NFL. I don't really see that. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think he is a guy that I would expect to be a receiver one at any point in his career. I actually think Javon Baker, who's someone who I think even though he was picked later, strikes me as a guy with a bit more potential, actually, just because of his route running ability. You saw that at UCF.
Yeah.
Someone that really also, I mean, again, he went to Alabama, and if you go to Alabama, there's a reason. There's a reason. He's obviously they are probably them in Ohio State, I'd say, are wide receiver university. So I like Javon Baker's potential a bit more as receiver one, but I think Polk is someone I would actually say is probably a bit more solid where I would trust him to be a starting receiver from the gate for Drake May.
So listen, there's potential in these two guys, but I just don't see it this year. The question is, can
A
these
receiver is I feel like a more translatable position, more
No,
translatable to
I
the
know that,
NFL
but
immediately than any
can this
other.
group of wide receivers, and I'm just going to pose the question: can this group of wide receivers, can first of all, can any of these guys break 1,000 yards? I don't think so. This year, I don't think any of these
Probably
guys.
not. I agree. I agree.
And can they, as a group, the five or six of them, that's Pop Douglas, the two rookies, KJ Osborne and Kendrick Bourne, let's say those are the six
Mhm.
that'll be on the roster. Can those guys come together and form a Packers like scenario? I don't think that's a possibility for them. I just don't think
I
that
disagree. I strongly disagree with that because how much I think with the Packers situation, it's not really that much different, I would say, to them, to what the Packers did a few last year actually, where they drafted Dontavion Wicks, they drafted Jaden Reed. I think you could that's very easy to compare with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, like I said, again, who are in a much better receiver class. And then I don't think they have a Romeo Dobbs on this roster, although I do like Pop Douglas. I don't think they have that kind of guy, but I feel like they could, again, with this receiver class being better, I feel like they could actually definitely um kind of kind of mimic what the Packers did last year. Not to mention, I know we're talking about receivers right now, but tight ends also. They've got Hunter Henry, who is a very solid tight end. So
solid.
a very solid tight end, an above average, I would definitely say.
Yeah,
They've also got Austin Hooper, who, you know, I think as a tight end too is fine.
yeah, that's not a
Nothing
problem.
special.
That's not
But
a problem.
I would say with the Patriots, I agree with you that I don't see anyone that could go over 1,000 yards this year. But I also see like five guys on this and this receive five, and I'd say six if you include Hunter Henry as a tight end that could go over 600 yards, which I think that's good for a rookie
I
quarterback.
mean, I just don't see both rookies. I don't think will go over 600. I don't think Kendrick Bourne will go over 600.
I'm saying
I
it's very possible. Like I think it's like 50-50. I think it's like
I think
that they
individually each of them should be able to go over 600, but as a group, you're looking at one alpha receiver who's
no,
probably
but I would say then maybe I'm not saying everyone will go over 600, but I think you could see someone go for like 800 yards and
yeah.
then someone else go for 400. So I think overall with that, not to mention again the tight end group, I think Drake May is in a situation where it's not a great situation. I think, and then we'll move on to the offensive line in a second because I know obviously that's also
We're touching
equally,
on.
if not more, as more important for a rookie quarterback. But I think there are more pieces in New England compared to the last few years. A lot more, I would say, to work with.
I mean, it's different because you've dealt with Patricia and O'Brien, and now you've got Alex Van Pelt at OC, who I think is a bit better. A bit
Hmm.
better. He was quarterbacks coach in Cleveland for a little bit. He was able to work well with Joe Flacco and work badly with Deshaun Watson, but we won't blame him for that.
Hmm.
I think the play calling should be a little bit different and a little bit more imaginative. But what we see with people in kind of that it's a little bit different than the McVay tree. I'm not going to call it the Stefanski tree. I don't really know what to call it.
Yeah, I
It's like
mean,
it's pretty run heavy, that kind of scheme. But honestly, I don't have enough information on what Alex Van Pelt is going to do as a play caller to even make a judgment because he hasn't done it yet. But I just know it's going to be a lot more imaginative than what we've seen in New England in the past. So that's
oh
something to
yeah.
look forward to.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think obviously again, those are probably having a guy like whoa, why am I forgetting the Texans? Oh, Bobby Slowick. Having a guy like Bobby Slowick is so huge for a rookie quarterback because then you see kind of the difference between CJ Stroud who had him and Bryce Young who had Frank Reich who is kind of, you could tell he's probably like the game seems to have moved a bit past him, I would say. So I think having a guy like having a strong offensive coordinator is obviously huge for a quarterback's development. So we'll see what Alex Van Pelt does there. But now, like I said, I was about to move on to the offensive line, something that they I think they did the most important thing that they had to do, and they re-signed Mike Onwenu. That was probably
Yes,
priority number one. He was probably, I would say, their best offensive player last year. I would say
he was for
he
sure.
was. Definitely. And not only obviously, I think he's a good tackle, great guard. Um, or I mean, he's kind of like I'd say similar. I'd say level for tackle and guard. I think he'll be great no matter where they put him. But that was priority one. They got that done. Huge for the Patriots there. When I look at that offensive line, it seems to be a bit
Old.
it's not very inspiring. They lost obviously Trent Brown, who wasn't great for them last year anyways, and their offensive line was pretty uncharacteristic of New England. It wasn't a good offensive line, and Jones and Zappi were constantly under duress there. This year we saw they drafted Caden Wallace in the later rounds. I wouldn't expect them to start. I don't know if they signed or traded for Chukwuma Okorafor from Pittsburgh,
Yeah, I think they
who
signed him.
I think they signed him. He hasn't been really good in Pittsburgh. Obviously, they wanted to move off him. That's why they drafted Broderick Jones there, and they drafted Troy
Tanu.
Fatanu this year. So not very promising that he's protecting the blind side. I do like the interior group. Obviously, David Andrews, probably one of the more underrated
Yeah,
offensive linemen in general in the entire league. Cole Strange, he's been fine.
done the
Hasn't been,
job. He's not
yeah.
been.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't a good first round pick. It wasn't a good investment there, but he's like okay. City So as well at right guard, but I don't know if they maybe move Onwenu there and try and maybe have Caden Wallace try and play right tackle. I don't know what their plan is there, but overall, this offensive line doesn't look very promising for me.
And for a team that's going to be run heavy, the interior is good. That's a good sign. Ramondre Stevenson's going to be wanting to get a lot of yards inside the sticks, but or inside the tackle box. But regardless, you need some fiery tackles in this day's NFL where
Hmm.
it's constantly becoming more horizontal as a game. You need to have offensive tackles, and I don't know who's going to be starting out there this year. It's maybe on Wenu in the tackle, maybe a Korafor. I don't know what they're going to do, but either way, if you don't have tackles that are able to pump out and get to the edge rusher that's just constantly getting better every year, edge rushers,
Hmm.
it's going to be a problem for a rookie quarterback who still is probably going to be adjusting to the timing of the NFL, but also to the run game, which if you've seen Cleveland's run game,
Yep, about it.
it's a lot of inside runs to Nick Chubb, but you know how much stretch they run. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it's something that it's going to have to be something that they keep an eye on.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be a lot harder to run that kind of offense when instead of having guys like Jack Conklin, Juwan Jones, and I would say even Jedrick Wills, he's a solid
Yeah.
tackle. But going from that to Okorafor, who is a big, like you're kind of hoping maybe to develop him into something. Obviously you might have Onwenu. I think Onwenu would probably play tackle. I mean, I'm looking at the Our Lads depth chart right now. They have him listed as a right tackle and City So as the right guard. So I guess I would expect him to play tackle. Um, that's obviously that's a strong point there. So that I think that would make sense for their scheme. Um, but I do agree with you that it will be a run heavy team. I don't think they want to kind of if May, which I would expect May to start week one with the
Yeah.
trends we're seeing with rookie quarterbacks now. I would expect him to start. Um, I think they're going to try and obviously kind of ease him into it even as he's playing. So obviously, again, the offensive line is going to be a huge obviously, I mean, it always is, but it's a huge question mark there for New England. So we don't really know what we're going to see out of them. I think with their previous offensive line coaches, we've actually seen them kind of perform above expectations. But I don't know if I would have that same expectation. Obviously, I know this was a few years ago, but with Tom Brady, you had someone who got the ball out quick, which made the offensive line look a lot better. And Drake May is going in there as a rookie, and as we saw with Mac Jones and Bailey Zapp, who basically played like rookies, they weren't able to kind of protect the not protect the offensive line, but kind of help mask the offensive line struggles in the same way.
Okay. Yeah, no, I would agree with that, that they need to be able to just play at a, I mean, honestly, it's just play better at this point. But
Mm-hmm.
the run game is going to be what the run game is. They lose Ezekiel Elliott this year, and Ramondre Stevenson's going to have to carry a huge load this season. Who's backing him up this year? It's
It's
Evan
Antonio
Harris,
Gibson. Antonio
Antonio
Gibson.
Gibson. Okay, no, that's not a
Hmm.
bad move, but
That's solid.
it's just something that New England haven't really had since Dion Lewis and James White. Someone that's just a shifty player that's gonna. He is a gritty player. He's gonna pick up yards after contact for sure. But they
Mm.
haven't had a smaller back in a while, so it's gonna be interesting to see what he can provide to them. But let's shift over to the defense though. Let's
Hmm.
shift over to the defense and talk Gerard Mayo, talk cornerback group. Gonzo's back this year. See what's up with them.
Yeah, even without Belichick, I expect this group to be better. We saw obviously the Patriots were a team that did suffer from injuries. We saw Gonzo going down week 3 or week 4, I think. I don't remember
It was
exactly,
week three. It was week three.
but I mean that is I mean they basically who are their corners? I mean, they still
Marcus
had a
Jones,
pretty good defense. It was Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones, right?
Jonathan Jones.
Yeah, I mean getting him back is huge. Like, really no other way to put it there. He was, I don't think he got burned the same. I'm not thinking like, not that like, they didn't catch a pass on him, but he was pretty much, um, doing well. I mean, he was having above average performances against some of the best receivers in the league. So getting him back is huge. This defensive line didn't really lose anyone. I really expect them to still be one of the better units in the entire league with guys like Christian Barmore, who had a career year last year, was
Yeah,
kind
he
of
was great. He got
really
paid.
making yeah, got paid, was kind of making probably I could have been a pro bowler, honestly, but I mean with how poor the Patriots were, obviously a lot of it is popularity contest, but he had a Pro Bowl worthy season, in my opinion. Also a guy there like Devon Godchuk, who's very good. Keon White had a solid rookie year as well. I like that group, and then getting Judon back is huge as well, of course.
I'm interested to
Um,
see how productive Judon will be this year, though, because coming off
mhm.
of an injury at his age, and I've been ever since this channel's been a thing, I've been such a big Judon uh glazer, but he is now he's old now, and I don't
I mean,
really
he's 31. He's 30, well,
for
31.
in edge rusher years that's pretty
Hmm.
old.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
just wonder how flexible he's going to be this season, how he's going to be able to get around some bigger offensive tackles because he's always been on the smaller side and he's been able to work it out with his speed. So it's just an interesting outlook for me to see what they're going to be able to do in terms of creating pressure because Barmore's great, Godshaw's okay, and then the edges are if Judon's not up to par, it's going to be weak.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do see that definitely. I think you're gonna also be relying on some other guys like Josh Uche, who had like who had an
Yeah.
okay year, but I think you're kind of expecting a bit more out of him, especially as someone who will probably still be in that designated pass rusher role that's becoming oh so more prominent in this league. Dietrich Wise, another guy that's there, someone who's kind of always been kind of under the radar, a solid player for the Patriots, even if he doesn't really start. I like him there, still being there. Um, so yeah, no, I mean at the end of the day, obviously they don't have Belichick anymore, but Mayo is still there, and he's even with that week that injury weakened lineup, we still saw them have the sixth best total defense in the entire NFL. So I do expect it to be at worst, I would say at worst it's top 10, barring insane injuries that are impossible to predict. I would still expect them to be top 10.
So in press conferences, Mayo has consistently said he doesn't just want to be Belichick too. He wants to be his own
Hmm.
head coach. He wants to make decisions his own way. And
Hmm.
I'm interested to see how that comes in. Is that going to be a personnel thing or is that going to be a scheme thing? I don't really see how he'll change up the scheme. I
Yeah,
think
no, yeah. I mean, I
blitz
think what
heavy
I
still, I think. I don't think they're
mhm.
going to go away from that.
Yeah. I think I didn't hear that, but from what I get from that is that I think schematic wise, all that stuff, like kind of tendencies, I don't think that's gonna change too much. And I think a lot of that was him anyways in the first place. And I think he's talking about that more from like a manager's like standpoint, from like a front office like running the entire building there, where New England, especially with Brady leaving, became a very unattractive destination for a lot of free agents, which made sense with Belichick. Kind of, it was my way or the highway. And Mayo obviously still got to have a semblance of authority there, but I think you kind of obviously making it also a place where players want to go. And I think if May turns out to be someone that is a guy, it's gonna make it even more. It's gonna be a new Patriots era for sure. But I think from a defensive standpoint, I don't expect much to change in terms of how they look and obviously in terms of production as well. We talked about the D line, we talked about the cornerbacks, but I think also something that's really going to keep make this defense work still is that safety group. Jabril Peppers very quietly had a very good season for them this year. I expect him to be still a pretty big part of that defense as well. Obviously, Kyle Duggar, someone that we've talked about for a few years now. He's been a great piece for them as well. So I think like I said, I've already said it. They'll still be top 10. They'll still be a good defense. I expect Mayo to I mean, obviously you have to change stuff from year to year. I mean that if you stay the same in the NFL, you're gonna get caught out. But I expect overall, I don't expect the defense to get worse. I think it'll get a little bit better because of the injuries, but that's my opinion. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense should get a little better. It's the injuries that screwed them last year. They should have been
Hmm.
a top 10 unit throughout the season. They ended up not being a top 10 unit. I believe at the very end of the season they fell out.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think personnel wise, the secondary has potential to be one of the better units in the league. I really like Gonzalez. I like both Joneses as somewhat solid corners, and then the safety core. I've been a big Kyle Duggar supporter, and Jabril Peppers had such a great year last year. I'm a little concerned about the D line. I'm a little concerned about the linebackers, but in general, I think the defense
Yeah.
should do their job. The problem is there's so many good teams in the NFL. The Patriots have lackluster offensive talent, top 15 defense. Let's run through their schedule and just quickly say who we think they're going to be able to even compete with. Week 1, they are at home. No, week 1 they are in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati.
No competition there. They're
Yeah,
good.
what I will say, I mean, Cincinnati are typically a slow starting team.
That's true.
I
That
don't
is
think
true.
it's impossible. I don't think it's. All
Yeah.
that being said, that has a lot been to Joe Burrow being injured every single offseason. So if he isn't, then I would expect Cincy to win that. But
Week two,
dudes,
first home game of the season is against Seattle. It's
Mike
doable.
McDonald against Drake May, that's a tough matchup. I don't like. I
Doable
don't
though.
like that. I
Doable
don't
though.
like that matchup. What?
It's doable though in my
It's
eyes.
doable. It's definitely doable. I don't like that matchup for New England. There, I agree. It's tough.
Now we've got a stretch of games that is incredibly difficult. It's week 3 in MetLife, and then week
Hmm.
4 in San Francisco. Week 5 home against the Dolphins. Week 6 home against the Texans. That little 4-game stretch is brutal.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, no, that's a tough stretch. I would say
Like
the
from
two
those
game
opening
what
six
I
weeks,
look when I look at
Miami's
that, I mean, when I look at that schedule, I say Miami at home, I would say is winnable. Houston at home, I would say is winnable.
nah. I
I
mean, it's like Miami, first of all, have beaten New England, I believe, the last. Tua hasn't lost to New England yet. So,
hmm hmm
like, they lost with Bridgewater, but that's with a healthy team. Miami should be able to walk them out of the park. Same with Houston. Houston are just a far more talented team than New England. And I
I
don't
think
think,
with Miami though is what concerns me is the fact that I think last year they weren't New England. I mean, again it was Bill, so it was again it wasn't Mayo. Well, it was Mayo. It was Mayo, but they did a pretty good job against Miami when they were at home. It
yeah,
was Sunday night. They did a good job. Could have won if it wasn't for that blasphemous offensive line but reaching for the first down
they
crazy
still
play.
weren't going to score a touchdown at the end of that drive. They
You
needed to.
don't. They could have. They could have. I don't think they would have, but it was possible. And they were in. They were in it till the final minute. And I think this is a better team. More so, I think this is Miami team. I think is obviously we're not talking about the Dolphins. So, but either way, I think with their defensive line, I think that kind of plays into um a possible strength of the Patriots with Alex Van Pelt, which is maybe running the ball again, making the game horizontal with a guy like Onwenu who could be a huge factor in that kind of game. Um, I think that game is winnable. Houston, obviously Houston have had an incredible offseason, but I think um there are always trap games in the NFL. There are
I
always
mean,
trap games in the NFL. And again, you could say that for every particular game, but I do actually like what New England has done. And I think in the NFL today, every team has talent at the end of the day.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's more so about minimizing your team's weaknesses rather than kind of having a bunch of star power at a few positions. And I think the Patriots have done a solid job. And like I said, I know I'm a lot higher on that receiving group than you are, but I don't think it's a group where like you think no one's gonna get open or I don't have anyone I can trust to get the ball to on this big play. Because I think there are guys I think there are at least three starting caliber receivers in that group. Um so I think, and then like I said, I think that defense, when healthy, if healthy, can keep them in any game. So I think again, it all at the end of the day, it all hinges on Drake May and how he's going to be doing in his rookie season. I don't expect him to have a great rookie season. I don't think he'll be um Zach Wilson level bad either. But um I would say that first stretch, I do agree it's tough, and I would be very surprised if they head out with a winning record. But when you look at like kind of the back half of the schedule, I think it does ease up a little bit. You have games like away against Tennessee, kind of tough, but Titans you kind of don't really know what they're going to be right now.
Think you're
Um,
maximizing the Patriots' talent on this roster to the absolute most that it could
well, I'm
be.
not I'm not
I,
saying there's like I'm not saying that they're a great offense. I'm not saying they're a good offense. I agree that they're a below average offense, but I'm comparing them to last year where they won 4 games, right?
yeah,
Am I wrong? 4 games,
no,
and
you're right
they've
in this scenario that it is a you're comparing it to last year, but at this point, last year is last year. I think we should be comparing it to the other teams in the league, in which I don't think there's an offense in the league that's worse than New England's right now, honestly. So it's where we can look at last year and say, okay, they won this many games and they're better. But you also have to look at the level of the rest of the teams in the league. Who is worse than New England offensively? Give me one team.
I would say
Maybe Denver. That's the one I can think of.
Denver I would say is
Maybe,
worse.
maybe.
I would
But
say yeah, I would say Denver. I would say no, not Tennessee, not Tennessee. Um Washington I would
no,
say is
I think
worse.
Washington are better built. They have two stud receivers or potential stud
Yeah,
receivers.
but that they did nothing to help that offensive line, I would say. I mean they got Biadasz and Allegretti, but
Those are
not
players that have played playoff games, and Allegretti has won Super Bowls.
yeah,
So
but no, not because of Alec. I mean, he's not
he,
bad, but
he was a good piece, but I think Washington have honestly done more to improve their offense this season than New
and
England did.
I would say New Orleans too.
No, New Orleans have a better offense by far.
besides
Kamara is
Olave.
still a good running back. Olave is one of the better
Are we
receivers in the league
sure?
this year. Yes.
Olave, I agree with Olave. Olave, I agree with.
And
But
New Orleans'
Kamara,
offensive line is good.
no.
So, yeah,
No Ramchick probably not gonna okay. Again, we're not making this about
yeah.
New England, so I'm just gonna get off this topic. And I agree with you that in most of the games that they're playing, they probably have a worse offense. But I think in most of these games played, they also have a better defense. And I'm a Jets fan, so I can say this firsthand. A good defense can make you win games you have no rights to win. And I would say again, this team also is a team that will possibly be able to withstand injuries because the level of all the receivers in the group are, I would say, similar. Like I said, we've all said they're low end receiver twos, high end receiver, or high end to mid receiver threes. That's what I would say.
I haven't touched receiver two. I don't think any of these guys are like KJ Osborne can be a receiver two. Everyone else is not like Kendrick Bourne and Pop Douglas
Kendrick,
are not receiver twos. And the rookies we'll see, but
I'll
they're
say
drafted.
Kendrick Bourne coming off the injury. I will say he's not a receiver two anymore.
He
But
never was. But
he,
no,
yeah,
he
I
was
don't. I mean,
year one. New
he
England
was
hasn't had
solid
any.
the last year. He was solid last year before the injury.
But my final statement on the matter is I just don't see a world where the talent on this team is able to overcome new coaching in both position groups, a rookie quarterback, and not even having a GM yet, and the hard schedule that they have. This team doesn't win more than 5 games this season, and that's just what the matter is. I know 5 is very little, and I've made this mistake already with saying
Mm,
the teams won't win 5 games, but
mm,
New England, they just don't have anything going for them. And other than Drake May, who I do really like, it's just a really weak team. So my final prediction, I'm going to say they go 4-13. Again, it's a rough year, but I think it will be an improvement in the fact that it's less dysfunctional.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say again, we have disagreed, I think, to a decent bit, but I would say I think going from Belichick to Mayo at this stage in his career, I think is actually an upgrade for the Patriots. I think getting kind of that fresh vision for New England will be good. And I think they did make positive moves and did make their roster better. And I know it also is comparatively to the league, but I've seen also a decent amount of teams get worse. I think after free agency this year. So I think they'll be a little bit better than what you say. I say they'll be 6-11, but like I said again, less dysfunction. And I think Drake May will show enough flashes to give fans hope for 2025. But
Yeah.
yeah. But I guess that's it for the video. So this is our first Buster Boom video again. Kind of, just starting it off. We're still kind of again getting back into the thick of things. So we're gonna be posting a bunch of these now kind of in the next few days. So make sure to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos, and we'll see you in the next one.